And I am just one person doing the work of many people. If the government and media is not going to do their job to help America, it's the responsibility of strong men and women, however old they may be, to do it. I am doing it. Despite the threats and burdens that come, it must be done.
Federal taxpayer dollars are unaccounted for, and the latest Senate hearing revealed the shocking truth behind wide-scale fraud, political cover-ups, and a complete lack of oversight. In this video, we break down how government waste is directly impacting young Americans, how political correctness enabled corrupt actors, and why politicians like Ilhan Omar need to be held accountable. Watch until the end to see the full breakdown and what must be done to protect American taxpayers. Every single year, millions of hardworking Americans wake up, go to work, pay their taxes, and trust that their money is going toward building a better country. But right now, while young people are struggling to buy their first home, afford a car, or even save up for a down payment, our national debt has blown past $40 trillion. And the worst part, billions upon billions of your tax dollars are literally being stolen through wide-scale, unchecked fraud right under our noses. I went through the latest Senate hearing transcript on federal fraud, and what came out of it is mind-blowing. Today we're breaking down the trillion-dollar cover-up, who enabled it, and why politicians on the left refuse to stop it. Let's dive in.
Make you feel as somebody who's 25 years old to know that your generation is going to pay the bill for everything that's happened right now. We have $40 trillion in debt.
That's the sad thing, is my generation's the one who's affected the most from this fraud and from the national debt. It's extremely hard for anyone my age to buy a home, even just to be able to accumulate the money to have a down payment inside your bank account. It's very, very hard. Everyone knew about the fraud, but everyone was too afraid to talk about the fraud because of what would happen to them. That's their priorities, is to make sure that they're not labeled as a racist or Islamophobic for exposing fraud or for exposing what's happening inside a community. Quite frankly, they use the Somali population to commit the fraud. Ilhan Omar should be disgraced of what she did to the Somali population.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing. And let me just point out again for the record that I think preventing fraud in government should be completely nonpartisan. It's not a Democrat issue or a Republican issue, yet almost the entirety of the Republican dais is filled with people sitting here listening to the entire hearing, and literally the entire Democrat dais is empty. I think that's, quite frankly, a disgrace. I think it's a disgrace to the people who pay taxes to know that there's an entire party that does not care whether taxpayer money is burnt. I think it's absolutely, completely outrageous. Mr. Shirley, I'll start with you. The previous Controller General of the GAO had been in office since 2011. What were you doing in 2011?
Playing football and basketball.
And what grade were you in?
At that time, I was 9 years old. So.
9? Gotcha. Yeah. So you were 9 years old, and this person served for 15 years in government. We have this idea that maybe we double down on that process that failed for 15 years, that somehow we'd be better off, and yet you went in at your risk and exposed fraud. I'm going to take a different angle. How does it make you feel as somebody who's 25 years old to know that your generation is going to pay the bill for everything that's happened right now? We have $40 trillion in debt.
Yeah.
And yet your generation is going to pay the price.
Yeah, I think that's the sad thing, is my generation's the one who's affected the most from this fraud and from the national debt. It's extremely hard for anyone my age to buy a home, even just to be able to accumulate the money to have a down payment inside your bank account. It's very, very hard. And so when you see a fraudster who literally opens up a layering center and they receive $1.9 million, and that was going on for years, and no one ever did anything. We had all this oversight. We had everyone knew about the fraud, but everyone was too afraid to talk about the fraud because of what would happen to them.
And what do you mean, what would happen to them? Is it impolite to say that somebody's defrauding the government because there's of some certain race or gender or national origin? Is that somehow racist to say you should not steal money from the federal government?
It's not racist, but politically it can be seen as racist. They may label you as Islamophobic or a racist, quite frankly.
Well, I think profiles in courage wouldn't be something that would be written about the current members of the Democrat Party, for sure. And because, again, you think you would agree that they're just afraid of being labeled that way, and that fear drives them away from even attending a hearing like today?
Yeah, definitely. And it's very sad to see that they put That's their priorities, is to make sure that they're not labeled as a racist or Islamophobic for exposing fraud or for exposing what's happening inside a community. Quite frankly, they use the Somali population to commit the fraud. Ilhan Omar should be disgraced of what she did to the Somali population.
And when you look at people in your generation can't afford a car, can't afford a house, don't see how in the future you'd be able to retire with any kind of dignity, and yet somebody can break into our country illegally, be provided a luxury hotel room in New York, 3 meals a day, maid service once a week, free education, free health care. What goes through your head when you think about that?
Like, how does this happen? We're putting foreigners oftentimes above American citizens, and it's very, very sad to see.
And Mr. Hetler-Gadet, I want to drill back down to the numbers you provided, because I want to make sure I heard them correctly. You talked about, again, we're here to talk about fraud. We can talk about waste in a different hearing. We're here to talk about fraud. You mentioned in 2025, what was the number that you said? You knew the numbers off the top of your head pretty well. It's impressive.
GAO estimated that in fiscal year 2025, we issued $186 billion in improper payments.
So $186 billion in 2025. From 17 to 20, which is President Trump's first term, that number by GAO is estimated to be $672 billion. Does that sound right?
I don't have that number off the top of my head, but
sounds right.
Yeah,
Generally. Again, GAO citing their numbers. And from 2020 to 2024, that number under Biden was $925 billion.
So I would point out 2020 is still the Trump administration.
No, this is fiscal year, so this would start October 1st.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was a 38% increase, and it's been massively cut back by President Trump in his second term. I don't know that that's the greatest case to be made, that the entire issue is because we have these inspector generals that have failed dramatically since the time Nick Shirley was playing basketball in his driveway when he was 9 years old. I think what we need to do here, Mr. Chairman, is take this topic very seriously. I think the American people are sick and tired of hearings, honestly. I think they need to see people who are held accountable, that go to jail. And until we do that, I don't know that we have the confidence of people. I feel badly for next generation, honestly. I don't know how they look at it and say, this government's just failing us. And the sense of disenfranchisement with the American government. I mean, I just can't wrap my head around the fact that Democrats care so little about this topic that they don't even show up. They didn't show up at your session either, Senator Johnson, when we talked about this exact topic in your committee. And ultimately, if your elected leaders don't give a crap about how government spends money, it's an indictment on that. And even worse, the media just won't even talk about it. There will be more stories on CNN tonight about the reflecting pond being empty than the fact that you had a hearing today about trillions of dollars of fraud. And that is the problem. The media is complicit. The Democrats are complicit, because that's ultimately, you have to think, what keeps them in power. So with that, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
America was built and created by strong men and women who loved America and never would have thought to rob, steal, or cheat from its very own citizens. Unfortunately, today, America's good faith has been abused by others, often foreigners who seek to harm, rob, and cheat America. Through my efforts, I've exposed billions of dollars of fraud and helped save America hundreds of billions for years to come. When we talk about fraud, we are talking about money that is being stolen from hardworking, law-abiding, tax-paying citizens. This issue has nothing to do with political parties. No dollar says Republican or Democrat on it. When a fraudster commits fraud, he or she steals from all of us. Last December, I published a 43-minute-long video exposing widespread fraud in Minnesota. That video became one of the most viewed videos in internet history and gained over 4 billion views in just 7 days across all forms of media. The fraud was so obvious that the fraudsters weren't even trying to hide it. The infamous Quality Leering Center was born, and that video has become one of the most consequential videos in American history by the amount of legislation it has created. Since posting it, over 30 bills have been created and introduced in Congress regarding fraud. A new fraud task force has been created, and the Treasury is working on new systems to stop fraud at unprecedented levels. I helped ignite a war on fraud across the country. People often wonder, how come this fraud became so big and how come it became so rampant? And the reason is because no one actually ever really looked into it. When Elon Musk offered to help by creating Doge, people burned his factories, bombed his cars, and politicians even celebrated his company's stock going down. Elon was right when he said the fraudsters complained the loudest. By exposing the fraud, I actually also exposed the politicians and media who worked for years to cover it up. Governor Tim Walz labeled my work as white supremacy and called me a far-right delusional conspiracy theorist. Meanwhile, he dropped out of re-election, and he even said he has ended his political career. Now, the highest government-funded daycare in Minnesota has pleaded guilty to daycare fraud, and the largest autism bust in American history has been exposed. Where is Tim Walz in the media now? It just so happens that over 80% of the fraud committed in Minnesota is by the Somali population. After Minnesota, I exposed widespread fraud in California within the daycare and hospice community, where an impossible 1/3 of Americans on hospice care were set to die in Los Angeles. The next day, the governor, Gavin Newsom, posted an AI-generated image of myself trying to mock and discredit my work. Only days later, he and his attorney general both tried to take credit for exposing the fraud. Now the attorney general's wife has created a bill that would make it criminal to expose fraud. The Stop Nick Shirley Act, also known as AB 2624, will help fraudsters cover up their crimes and prevent themselves from being exposed, specifically in immigrant communities. Politicians often use immigrant communities to commit fraud. Why would they allow this to happen? In California, Medi-Cal, their Medicaid program, has now more than doubled from $108 billion in 2022 to a proposed $222 billion, while enrollment has only rose by less than 1%. The system is filled with bad actors and fraudsters. In New York City, government-funded adult daycares pay for elderly Koreans and Chinese to play ping pong and do Tai Chi at the taxpayer's expense. An impossible number of patients are registered, and those patients receive kickbacks for attending and signing up their friends. Over $2 billion has gone to these fraudsters at the taxpayer's expense. And I'm just one person doing the work of many people. If the government and media is not going to do their job to help America, it's the responsibility of strong men and women, however old they may be, to do it. I am doing it. Despite the threats and burdens that come, it must be done. I'm doing it with the help of everyday Americans that government-paid officials are supposed to do. And the media teams across the country have millions of dollars to do this, yet they don't look into this fraud. They've actually quite literally failed us. If we as Americans do not stand up to protect our country, we will lose our country. Fraud is so rampant in the United States, I could go to all 50 states and uncover millions of dollars of tax dollars being defrauded, wasted, and abused. It is my wish while sitting in front of you guys today that you take action and help Americans by cracking down on all of the fraud, and to simply put Americans first.
Start with what happened inside the hearing room itself. When you look at the dais, the Republican side was filled with lawmakers listening, asking questions, and demanding answers on how to protect taxpayer money. And the Democratic side, almost entirely empty. Government Accountability Office estimates show over $186 billion in improper federal payments in a single year alone. Under the Biden administration, improper payments ballooned to over $900 billion. Preventing fraud isn't supposed to be a partisan issue. A stolen dollar hurts every single taxpayer regardless of political party. Yet when it comes to taking action, conservative lawmakers are showing up to demand accountability, while the left literally doesn't even show up to the room. How does fraud on this scale happen for years without anyone stopping it? The answer is simple: fear of political correctness. Independent investigators revealed massive fraud networks like the Quality Learning Center scandal in Minnesota, where fraudsters received millions in government funds for services that were never provided. Everyone in authority knew about it, but no one wanted to speak up. Why? Because the moment anyone pointed out fraud inside certain communities, they were immediately labeled racist or Islamophobic. Bad actors quickly learned that political correctness was the ultimate shield, allowing corrupt operations to steal from American taxpayers completely unchecked. This complete breakdown of leadership is most evident in Minnesota. Corrupt individuals actually used and exploited the local Somali population to execute massive fraud schemes involving government-funded daycares and autism programs, stealing resources meant for people who truly needed them. Representative Ilhan Omar should be deeply ashamed of what happened under her watch. Instead of protecting her community, standing up for law-abiding citizens, and demanding strict oversight, her silence and political narrative enabled an environment where rampant fraud flourished. We need leaders who put American citizens and taxpayers first, not politicians who look the other way while millions disappear. If you believe taxpayer money should be protected and politicians need to be held accountable, take a second to hit that subscribe button below and turn on notifications so you never miss an update on stories the mainstream media refuses to cover. This isn't just happening in one state, it's a systemic problem across the entire country. In California, Medi-Cal spending doubled to over $200 billion despite enrollment growing by less than 1%, while hospice and daycare programs face rampant abuse. In New York City, government-funded adult daycares have paid kickbacks to individuals just to sign up and participate in recreational activities, draining over $2 billion from taxpayers. Millions of dollars intended for healthcare and social safety nets are being funneled into the hands of fraudsters while working Americans pay the tab. The bottom line is clear: America was built by people who believed in hard work, integrity, and respect for public resources. What we are seeing today is a systematic abuse of our nation's good faith. We need real oversight, tough prosecutions, and leaders who aren't afraid to audit every single department to put American taxpayers first. Until people actually face consequences and go to prison for defrauding the public, nothing will change. Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts on this situation. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.